Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day today because we have life, have energy, and we all face a challenge, and the biggest challenge that we face is ourself. I mean, that's the biggest challenge, ourself, and it's about pride. You know, somebody said once, "It's not if you have pride, it's how much pride you do have. How much of it do we share?" You know, and pride does not allow us to first recognize what's important in us, for us, and also it doesn't allow us to change. It is hard to change when you have pride. And it does not allow us to move forward. And when you are in this program, there's a lot of things that you're seeing and you're saying, with the information you have, it's like, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to, it's not for me. That part is not for me. And it's hard for us to change. And pride gets in the way, and God wants to work something in you, but it's hard to work it in you when pride is in the way. Let's see a story today and see what pride does to us and how God dealt with pride. On King Nebuchadnezzar, we're going to go to Daniel 4, chapter 4. And we are going to start in the last verse of Daniel 4. We're not going to start in the beginning. We're going to start at the end of the book, at the end of the chapter. So we're going to go to Daniel 4. The end of Daniel 4. We're going to go verse 37. Daniel 4, verse 37. And look who's writing Daniel 4. It says, "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways judgment. And those that walk in pride he's able to abase." So who's writing this chapter now? The king himself. Nebuchadnezzar, he's writing the chapter, but now he's admitting that he has a problem. He had a problem of what? What was his main problem? Pride. So God has showed him, hey, you're suffering from a chronic disease of depression. Here's how being connected changes that. Remember that in chapter 2 and then in chapter 3? He had all this anxiety and he didn't know how to deal with anxiety. And God showed him how to deal with anxiety. And even so, he still had pride. And we're going to see. Let's go to verse 1. Chapter 4, verse 1. And it says, "Nebuchadnezzar the king, unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God has wrought towards me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders! His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house, and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions on my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream." Verse 7, "Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof." So what happened? The person writing the chapter is Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, you know what? I had a dream. No, God speaks to this man through dreams. Have you had dreams like that? That you just God speak through you through dreams? You're like, wow, this is something. I saw something. I have dreams in my, that are very, vivid. That you just lived it. He had a dream, and he says, I was troubled by it. So what did he do after he woke up? What did he do? Yes, he went and he said, he what brought the people that were workers of mysteries. He looked for the astrologers, the magicians, the wise men, the soothsayers, the diviners, all these people. Let us figure out the dream. And this time he remembered the dream, so he told them the dream to see if they can get to the interpretation. Well, let's see what happens. Oh, it says that, were they able to interpret the dream? No. Why didn't they were able to interpret the dream? They were not connected. They were not connected. Now, the question is, the first time he had a dream, he goes to these people for answers, and what do they say? No, we don't have answers. We're not connected to God. This is just the only way you can interpret this dream. Now, a second time, the same thing happens, and he goes back to the same place. What caused him to go to the same place? He was not connected. Pride gets in the way of us to reason things out correctly. We think that, hey, I have a problem. My natural drive is to go to somebody that knows how to solve that problem, right? Is that how we work in our minds? It says, I have a problem. There's a specialist, there's a professional that can solve my problem. And we're all like that. And the problem is, if you go to the same person that is not connected, what answers are you going to get? The same answers you got before that weren't really answers. And when we are scared because we have a problem or we're troubled, we don't think to call on God first. We just go first to the professionals, to the specialist. I'm not saying that God doesn't use especially professionals, but be careful with people that are not connected with God. They're going to give you the same answers. The history repeats itself. Now let's continue. Verse 8 says, "But at last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belshazzar, master of magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee. Tell me the vision of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the vision of mine head in my bed. I saw, behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the side thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heavens dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed of it." Now, so his dream was what? Was of a tree. It was of a tree. And it was a small tree or was it a big tree? A huge tree. So big that birds would make their abode in the tree. It has a lot of fruit to feed a lot of things. It's interesting that God gave him a dream of a tree. You know why? God uses a specific dream for him because Babylon is known by their hanging trees, it's called. And I went to look for these hanging trees and figure out how they looked and what was it about, because it was supposedly one of the wonders of the ancient world. So what happens is that he married somebody, Nebuchadnezzar married somebody that lived in a place where there were forests and mountains. And she missed her country because her country in Babylon was flat land. So she was missing this. So she always, I wish I could be at home. So what he decided to do is to build these forests and mountains inside the city. And it looked like, that you were looking at a mountain of trees, and it looked like they call them the hanging trees. So it was, spectacular. He was kind of an architect when he designed this. So he had a lot of pride for his work of his hand. He said, this is a wonderful thing. Look how beautiful it is that I have made this, and my wife is going to be happy, and everybody admired the work of his hands. So it is interesting that God used a tree for that dream. Verse 13 says, I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, and a holy one came down from heaven. I think these are angels, an angel. He cried aloud and said thus, hold down the tree and cut off its branches, shake off his leaves, and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, and in tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it whomsoever he will, and set it over the bases of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O Belshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof. For as much as all the wise men in my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in thee. So, this big tree, what happened to it? It said that a holy one, an angel came and said, cut it down. And it was cut down, and everything underneath was shaken. And then the stump was left in the ground for how long? 7 times, 7 years. And it says that the heart of man was changed to a heart of a beast, just to show that the God of heaven rules on the world. And he gives the kingdoms to whoever he wants to. Now he says, Daniel, you have something different. You have something different. What is the difference between Daniel and the other wise men? He explained the difference. He understood. He saw the difference. What was the difference? He was connected. The Spirit of God was living in Daniel, and he knew this. So God is going to help you to understand and decipher this dream. Verse 19. Then Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, was astonished for an hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spake and said, Belshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. Belshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemy. Daniel cared for this man. After working for him and seeing him, he cared for him. And he said, for an hour, he says that he was troubled by the dream. He says, I hope this dream is for your enemies and not for you. Continue, verse 20. The tree that thou sawest which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwell, and upon those branches the fowl of heaven had their habitation. It is you, O King, for you have become great and strong. Your greatness is such that it reaches unto heaven, and your authority to the ends of the earth. As for the king, seeing a holy watcher coming down from heaven and saying, chop down the tree and destroy it, but leave its taproot in the ground, with a band of iron and bronze around it, surrounded by the grass of the field, let it become damp with the dew of the sky, and let it live with the wild animals until 7 times go by him. This is the interpretation, O king. It is the decision of the Most High that this has happened to my lord the king. Verse 25, you will be driven from human society, and you will live with the wild animals. You will be fed grass with oxen, like oxen, and you will become damp with the dew of the sky. 7 times will pass by for you before you understand that the Most High is ruler over human kingdoms and give them to whomever he wishes. They said, leave the taproot of the tree, for your kingdom will be restored to you when you come to understand that heaven rules. Therefore, king, may my advice be pleasing to you. Break away from your sins by doing what's right, and from your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. Perhaps your prosperity will be prolonged. Now, this was the dream, and the interpretation was that tree represented who? The king. It represented the king. And by representation of the king, it says that he was be cut down, and for 7 years he would lose his mind, completely lose his mind and become like a beast. For 7 years. Until he recognized the God of heaven. And when that happened, he was going to be returned to his kingdom. Now, he would be like an animal, and he would behave like an animal throughout these seven years. It says that the dew of heaven will bathe him, and he would eat grass like an oxen. Verse 28. Now, all of this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. After 12 months, he happened to be walking around the royal palace of Babylon. So he was walking in the royal palace, and he's looking out, right? 12 months have passed, and look what happened. Verse 30. The king uttered these words. Is this not the great Babylon that I have built for a royal residence by my own mighty strength and for my majestic honor? You see, I think that the spirit of Babylon is this, it is what you have done, what you have performed, what is the labor of your hands. Remember, we looked into this before. And Babylon's spirit has that same spirit. It is not the Almighty, but it is what I have done with my own mighty hands. And as soon as he said that, look what happens in verse 31. While these words were still on the king's lips, a voice came down from heaven. It is hereby announced to you, King Nebuchadnezzar, that your kingdom has been removed from you. You will be driven from human society, and you will live with the wild animals. You will be fed grass like an oxen. 7 periods of time will pass by you before you understand that the Most High is ruler over human kingdoms and give them to whomever he wishes. Now, in that very moment, look how quickly it was. In that very moment, this pronouncement about Nebuchadnezzar came true. He was driven from human society. He ate grass like oxen, and his body became damp with the dew of the sky, until his hair became long like an eagle's feather, and his nails like a bird's claw. But at the end of the appointed time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up towards heaven, and my sanity returned to me, and I extolled the Most High, and I praised and glorified the one who lives forever. For his authority is everlasting authority, and his kingdom extends from one generation to the next. All inhabitants of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he wishes with the army of heaven, and with those who inhabit the earth. No one slapped his hands and said to him, "What have you done?" And at that time my sanity returned to me. I was restored to my honor of my kingdom, and my splendor returned to me. My ministers and my nobles were seeking me out, and I was reinstated over the king of my kingdom, and I became even greater than ever before. So exactly what happened, exactly was the dream said it was going to happen. It happened to him because of what? His pride. You know, he had pride, and he says, you know, look at what I have done. You know, we value ourselves by what we do. And since we do so much, especially when you do so much, it's really hard to let go of that. Let's say you go to school for 12 years. You know, you go to school for 12 years to learn something. And somebody says, let me challenge what you're saying. You don't know what you're saying. What do? Your pride overcomes and says, no, I have all this learning that I've done. Or maybe it's your experience. I have a lot of experience. You see, pride gets in the way of letting God lead our lives. You know, or especially what happens when you do something. Say Maria's in the kitchen, she's putting a lot of effort to that meal. And somebody says, wow, this is tasteless. This doesn't taste good. All of a sudden, your pride comes in and says, you know, I've been here working so hard, and you're coming like that. You know, it does not allow us to change. The king suffered from that, but at least he was able to recognize the God of heaven. Now, what were the remedies that God used for him? What were the remedies? He used wheatgrass. It was wheatgrass. You're taking wheatgrass. Help your mind. What else? Yeah, fresh air. He had fresh air. Sunshine. Excellent. Sunshine. What else? Exercise. Excellent. He had exercise. He had hydrotherapy, right? It was the dew of the ground every morning. Rest. He had rest. Yeah, he didn't have to deal with all the trouble that he had to deal before. You know, he has peace, right? Yeah, he had a balanced life, and he had, you know, somebody that cared for him. You know, he had somebody that cared for him. I bet Daniel was the one that would care for him, look after him, you know, while he was like a beast. Now, these are interesting facts that are in this story that you could you could oversee them, or God should, you know, probably didn't have to put them there, but he put them there for a reason, to show you that these things help to get off of your mind in the right place. And then at the end, he recognized God as the source of everything. Now, you could experience this as a king. Maybe you lose your way in some way because of your pride, choosing things that you say, I want it my way. I know this is wrong for me, but I want it my way. So I'm just going to do it what I want to do, how I want to do it. And now we're in a situation that we have to deal with. But if you look to the God of heaven, he will restore. He will restore you, because he's willing to restore you. Now, this story gives me hope, because God is the source of wisdom. He was like a beast. His mind was not cleared. When he recognized God, how soon did it took for his mind to get clear again and he could have wisdom and understanding again? How long did it took? No, it was not 7 years. When he looked up heaven and recognized God, immediately God gave him wisdom. You see, God can give you wisdom immediately. It doesn't need to wait. He can give you, if you recognize him immediately, he can give you what you need to do, what he wants you to do. So, pride it's a tough one, because as again, it's not if we have pride, it's how much of it we have, and it gets in the way for God to do what he wants for us. And let's learn from this story that the God of heaven is in control. He knows what's best for you. He knows that sunshine, fresh air, rest, hydrotherapy, nutrition, good nutrition, trust, all of these things are important for your health in life. May God bless you. Let's have a great day today. Thank you very much.